Hi there everybody, this is David, and today we're going to be going through my picks of the top 10 hidden gems of 2025. We're going to be looking at games that, actually did something interesting, something earnest, something worth celebrating. Not just the same old, something that went off the beaten tracks here. These are the kind of titles that remind me of why I play RPGs in the first place, and I definitely do think that's worth the sub as you come and you join our party and you level on up with me. Thank you so much for your sub, your like, and your hype. Your support just means the world to me throughout this year. Thank you so much. And now let's go ahead and get started. Number 10, the 100-Line Last Defense Academy. This game kind of looks like a joke on the surface. I mean, it's a school simulation where the world ends in 100 days unless you train a group of hopeless students into world-class defenders and soldiers. Kinda odd, but once you actually play it, it really does become clear how meticulous the design really is. The entire structure is built around countdown pressure. Every decision, every class session, every dungeon run chips away at your limited amount of time. It's stressful, but in a compelling way that forces you to adjust, rethink, and make peace with your imperfect choices. What surprised me the most, though, is just how deeply the game cares about its characters. They start as caricatures, but the more that you invest in them, the more their personal fears and ambitions turn the Academy into like a believable community. The combat is tactical, almost kind of like chess-like, and your upgrades matter because you earn them under pressure. It's not flashy, and it's not meant to be. It's a slow burn, a strategy-driven RPG that rewards your commitment, the kind of hidden gem that reminds you why small studios still matter, and you can play this thing like forever. It has 100 endings after all. Number 9, Atelier Yumiya. This here takes the series' traditional alchemy core and threads it through like a narrative theme of memory. Yumiya is a quieter, more contemplative Atelier entry, whereas Ryza and her friends were loud and boisterous. Yumiya is almost kind of like a Mary Sue. She's defeated by the world around her, and she doesn't want to ruffle anybody else's feathers, because at the end of the day, nobody likes her anyway, and no matter what she does, she's still going to be blamed for everything, and she's still going to be ostracized. So you just kind of go around and you do what you're told, exploring a ruined continent, gathering materials, and using synthesis not to just kind of like power through combat, but in order to reconstruct the lost history of the world around you. What I loved most about it, though, was just kind of like how open it was. Never in my life did I ever think that the extraordinarily linear Atelier series would become something like Xenoblade Light. The 4 major zones that you explore are just absolutely massive. They are filled to the brim with old ruins, treasures that are tucked away, monster nests, and just, more secrets that you could shake a stick at. It's just so fun to go around and explore. But the strongest thing that Yumiya does is its slow, consistent world building. Rather than sprinting off to an artificial climax, it hands you incremental revelations and small mechanical upgrades that do feel earned. And the pacing makes it one of the series' better entries for players who like the alchemy and they also like quiet character work. It's not going to convert players who don't like alchemy, but if you're curious about the series and you like Xenoblade, then you might do want to try this one out. Number 8, Octopath Traveler 0. This here is the rare prequel that not only justifies its existence, but also enriches everything around it. It is definitely not some mobile port cash grab. It is a proper reimagining of that game, and it also does something completely new. Mechanically, it still clings to the HD 2D aesthetic and its turn-based combat that made the series so famous. But it also opens the doors, because instead of 8 fixed protagonists, you get a customizable main character, a massive recruitment pool of over 30 recruitable companions, and 8 character battles that let fight feel really big, and it also allows you to really play around with all your recruits. The combat still does reward your planning. All the BP management, the exploited weaknesses, all that's still there. But now the scale and the party variety let you create genuinely distinct team identities. It's the sort of expansion that both respects the old formula and also reinvents it too. Beyond that though, Octopath does a great job with its storytelling. It leads into Orstera's history while giving returning faces and locations fresh context, and the town building elements, rebuilding of Wishvale after the disaster, adds a real stake to exploration that was not there before. Another nice thing is that you don't have to have played the other games in the series to understand what's going on in this one, but if you have played them, you will be greeted with plenty of Easter eggs. This one here has definitely been overshadowed by Square's bigger releases, but it also solved one problem that I had with Octopath. How to make the formula feel fresh and new again, and not just the same old, same old. Number 7, Kingdoms of the Dump. If I'm being honest, unless you're an indie game on the level of something like Sea of Stars or Chained Echoes, you're pretty much just a hidden gem. And this one here is one of the most charming love letters to the SNES era RPGs that we've gotten in years. But the tragedy is that most people still have no idea that it even exists. It's built with a meticulous understanding of what made those classic 16-bit adventures so resonant. This game takes place in a world literally made of trash. There's trash kingdoms, junk wastelands, forgotten relics. It sounds kind of odd and a little bit ridiculous, but the execution is wonderfully sincere. The combat's turn-based, but thoughtfully constructed, with mechanics that reward planning rather than just button mashing. It has that push-pull-trap mechanic of Radiant Historia, along with grid-based combat like Popolo Croix, and the writing is super funny too. It definitely does not take itself too seriously, and it's only there for a good time. And honestly, that's what I play games for, to have a good time. Number 6, Atelier Res Lariana. If you couldn't tell by now, I have really fallen back in love with the Atelier series. I adored them back on the PS2 with Manic Chemia and Atelier Iris. But then I fell out of love with them on the PS3 when the mainline time limit games came into play. But then I tried it out again with Atelier Ryza, and I just have not looked back. Atelier has quickly climbed the ranks to one of my favorite series. It is up there with Final Fantasy, Dragon Quest, Tales, and Star Ocean. And after the departure that was Yumiya, Gus decided to do the same thing that Square did, and they retooled their mobile game, their failure of a mobile game, into a console game. And this was their answer for fans who missed the old Atelier structure. It returns the series to the more classical turn-based, synthesis-forward design while adding modern conveniences and a surprisingly meaty town and shop management layer. There are 2 dual protagonists whose stories interweave, a timeline-based command battle system that asks for deliberate choices rather than, frantic button mashing of the Ryza series, as well as a crafting loop that actually matters, because the items you make can affect shops and even the story. The game's ambition is modest, but it's also focused. You rebuild and manage your home base while exploring randomized dungeons and growing your alchemical repertoire. It feels like an Atelier built from the bones of Sophie and the classics, and I think that's exactly the right move. Number 5, Mado Monogatari, Fia and the Wondrous Academy. This here is a revival of a franchise most Western players barely know about, even though it has been around since 1990, and yet it stands as one of the most refreshingly traditional dungeon-crawling RPGs of the year. The game follows Fia, a young magician navigating a labyrinth filled with puzzles, secrets, and a magical system that rewards your experimentation. But what sets it apart is its tone. Instead of leaning into hyperactive energy that often infects modern fantasy RPGs with little girls, instead, Fia approaches the world with gentle curiosity. The dungeons are dense, but they're thoughtfully designed, and they're filled with little environmental details that teach you how to read the room. The combat's fast, but also layered, encouraging smart spell usage rather than just brute force. And the writing, while understated, captures that old school charm where characters don't need to scream their emotional trauma in order to be memorable. It is a delightful surprise. It's a game that reminds you of how magical simple ideas can be when they're executed with love and care. Number 4, Quartet. This here is one of the most confident turn-based RPGs of the year, even though it's also indie. It's a multi-protagonist adventure that takes that Octopath format, but it actually commits to the intertwining stories in a meaningful and thoughtful way. This is definitely not 8 separate storylines. It's 8 characters with 4 storylines, but they all intertwine, and it all makes sense in a cohesive way. The combat blends classic turn-based design with subtle modern touches. The ability to switch out your party members at any time, characters regenerating their MP in the back row, the ability to layer on debuffs that synergize with your party, and also having that old school charm. You are not just equipping a weapon and an accessory here. The equipment is robust, the world map is huge, and there's tons of secret areas all over the place. And the soundtrack, it is composed with a clear love for 90s RPG aesthetics. It just ties everything together beautifully. The writing is a clarity and a maturity to it that stands out in a year filled with bloated scripts and empty twists. Quartet is not here to shout for your attention. It simply just does everything well, confidently, and with a clear vision. And that there is why it is a hidden gem, because it definitely did not need to advertise its greatness. Its greatness stands on its own. Number 3, Starlight Legacy. This here looks like a simple indie action RPG at first glance, but beneath its clean visuals is actually one of the most well-constructed adventure stories of the year. You play as a young astronomer exploring ruins tied to ancient celestial myths, and what begins as an innocent quest gradually expands into a surprisingly emotional journey about heritage, loss, and the desire to preserve fading knowledge. But what makes this really a standout is a sense of exploration. Every single area feels handcrafted, with puzzles and environmental storytelling that reveals new layers of the world, and you can go to each area in any order that you want to. The combat is modest but polished, and the narrative pacing is remarkably tight for such a small studio project. Nothing feels like filler, nothing drags, and every character interaction builds towards a larger whole. It wears its retro heart on its sleeve, but then it also surprises you with how modern it feels under that pixel mask. Number 2, Stray Children. This here is one of the strangest and most emotionally unsettling RPGs I've played this year. Not in a horror sense, but in the way that it presents childhood from a perspective that feels dreamlike, melancholic, and slightly warped. You play as a boy who awakens in a world inhabited only by children, and the game explores childhood, responsibility, and the grotesque underside of adulthood through allegory and occasional dark humor because the adults are actually your enemies. And the combat has that Undertale influence here. It's action-based inputs, but also turn-based structures with the dodging mechanics. But there's also real options for pacifist approaches too. And if this does look similar, it's because it's also by the developers of Moon and Tulip. But the brilliance of Stray Children lies in its storytelling. The game never explains too much, and it never forces itself upon you, but it also never talks down to you either. Instead, it respects your intelligence and allows you to piece everything together through meaningful fragmented imagery, environmental cues, and character interactions. The combat's pretty robust, and it's a whole lot of fun if you are into that Undertale kind of combat system. But also, in a cool little twist, your emotional states actually tie into the combat. If you're anxious or you're confident, your abilities will change, creating a system that reflects the instability of childhood without ever feeling gimmicky or anything. This here is haunting, gentle, and unforgettable. It's a true hidden gem. And finally, our number 1 is Fuga Melodies of Steel 3. This here completes one of the most overlooked RPG trilogies of the modern era. It continues the story of a group of children navigating war, trauma, and survival inside of this tank. And somehow, after 2 already incredibly emotionally heavy games, they found a way to deepen the stakes without it feeling repetitive. The strength of Fuga 3 lies in its choices. Every decision that you make, who rests, who fights, who risks exhaustion, and who you sacrifice carries weight. Permadeath is real here, and the soul can system returns with even more moral and mechanical tension, and the game does a remarkable job of forcing you to confront the cost of survival. The writing treats all the characters with respect, as they grow in ways that feel honest, as they're shaped by years of struggle rather than forced melodrama. You combine that with a tighter combat loop, better pacing, and some of the best music of the trilogy, and this here is a powerful, thoughtful conclusion that deserved far more attention than it ever got. So that there wraps up my top 10 hidden gem RPGs of 2025. These here are the kind of games that keep the genre alive. Projects with vision, sincerity, and enough heart to put a lot of AAA studios to shame. But hey, if y'all think that I missed one, please do let me know in the comments, because I'm always looking out for that next surprise hit. And if you enjoyed this breakdown, please be sure to level on up with me and join my party by subscribing, and also hit that like and hype button too. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see y'all in the next RPG adventure.